In this video, I'm gonna briefly introduce what journalism is to you and what journalism writing is. Um, there is a lot to say, but since I'm introducing different technical topics of writing to you, I think journalism is equally important along with other kinds of writing, of different genres like fictions and non-fictions. Journalism, first you need to have a basic concept of journalism. When we talk about journalism, it's the practice of gathering, recording, verifying, and reporting on information of public importance. The word journalism has its own root word de jure, which talks about the reporting of daily chores. But this has been applied to the field of journalism as a practice of gathering and recording and reporting the information of public importance. When we talk about public importance, the news, that must be somehow interesting. And of public importance as well, something which is usual and everybody knows and familiar with, that cannot be in the topic of importance or news. They're just saying that when a dog bites a man, that cannot be news, but when a man bites a dog, then that becomes news. That's how they used to define a long time ago. So that's what it is. So again, that's the definition of news, which comes under the discussion of journalism as well. So journalism has a purpose to inform than to persuade. You don't want to persuade somebody else to do something. There is a opinion editorial page in the field, which might have a person's personal opinion which may persuade others, but when you are writing and reporting, you have to be very fair and balanced, and try to inform people, and based on the information, the people will make their decision, or will make their views. And again, as I said, it must be objective, it should be fair. You should avoid your personal opinion in news writing, and should be very balanced. You have to bring different, the perspectives into play. I mean, the both sides perspective, and try to be as fair as possible. And talking about journalism, there are so many pages, including editorials, columns, and opinion-based content. And most of the opinion-based contents and editorials might have their own personal subjective perspective, unlike news reporting. Again, in journalism, there are primary sources, which are more important than secondary. There is hard news versus soft news. Soft news includes some sort of a subjective reflection of a person, of the writer. Hard news is more about reporting, on the hardcore topic. And usually, news is written in journalism in a very inverted pyramid style. The most important, the information which asks the questions or answer the questions of like what, who, where, how. It says like 5W and 1H, like what, when, why, where, how, sort of a questions will be answered in the very first lead of your news writing, and that applies to even press release writing as well. Talking about the language and style of journalistic writing, you don't want to have a long sentence, not more than 20 words maximum. That's how you try to make it more communicative, because the idea behind is that the writing in journalism is also not only like elite people will be reading the newspaper, or the writing. Also, common lay people will be reading, who might be illiterate, might not have higher education. So you might want to be very communicative, and the language you use or the way you write should be accessible to common people as well, to lay people as well. For example, you can compare these two different the paragraphs, and see how which one is much simpler and easy to understand. I basically copied these examples from one of the articles which has been posted to Georgia View. Okay, look at that. Four aircraft passengers, the pilot, and three people traveling in a car were killed when a twin-engine Beechcraft Baron aircraft hit an electric power line and crashed near Nadi Airport this week. It's a too long sentence, a little bit confusing. Somehow it's repetitive at some point. But if you go to your Your second paragraph, story B, it's very short sentence. 8 people died when an aircraft crashed near Nadi Airport this week. That tells exactly what the readers, needs to know at a first very glance without any roundabout way. And then the sentences are very short and very communicative and effective as well. So you can go and you can read on your own. And language, how what kind of language or style to use is based on your the media policy as well. Each and every media does have their own style book, what kind of words to be used, what kind of style to be used. They have their own style guide, style book. Each and every media does have. And again, try your best to make short, sharp, and clear sentences, and that is basically applied to journalistic writing. Again, talking about language and style in journalistic writing, some journalists also believe that they can only add drama or depth to a story by adding words. Uh, but we get sentences like, the man ran swiftly across the street to help the defenseless boy who was being brutally beaten. And this sentence, you see, it sounds very good at a first glance, but it uses a lot of adverbs, and it's kind of a not letting the reader define on their own way, rather trying to persuade the readers, telling them the writer's impressions. But you try not to use adverb as much as possible, but which is basically, you might want to make your language so live. So if you take out the adjectives and adverb in italics, it comes out to very short. And then look at that. The man ran across the street to help the boy who was being beaten. It simply can tell a lot without using adverbs, and then the reader can they still know how the effect of it. So try to make your language very live. Basically, this applies to all kinds of writing, but when it comes to journalism, you will try not to persuade others using a lot of adverbs and adjectives. Rather, you try to be very black and white, like the very clear. The most effective way to add drama to a sentence is to choose the adverbs, choose the verb carefully. So you need to know which verb is important, or how to use very effective verb. Verb gives life to the sentence. Okay. Talking about again language and style, you don't want to use the same word again and again and make it repetitive. Use new words. Again, you will look at the sentence structures, a variety of sentence structure, not too long and confusing. Again, be very careful about using conjunctions and clauses. And then again, this is an example of journalistic writing. I borrowed from one of the readings that is posted to Georgia View again. Simple. That's a sample of journalistic writing. You begin with the lead that try to answer pretty much all the questions that the reader might be wondering about. If some incident happens, the where it happened, how it happened, who caused it, when it happened, things like that. So that needs to come to your lead at the very beginning, and then you try to back it up with the both sides view as and perspective, and try to be as fair as possible. So talking about elements of journalism, you always are obliged to the truth. You speak the truth, you write the truth, as much as possible. You try to gather as much as information as possible. You don't try to write just from one very perspective. You will be very loyal to the citizen. You won't be biased and try to be influenced by somebody else, the perspective. And you will be very disciplined in terms of verifying the information. When you gather the information, you might want to double check and double verify before you publish it. You will maintain independence. You will also provide a forum for public criticism and compromise on the topic. And then also you might want to make this story very interesting and relevant of public interest. And then the way you write should be comprehensive. That is it pretty much. So these are a few things you might want to know when it comes to the practice of journalism and the journalism writing. And that is it. I just wanted to give you an overview of journalism writing while talking about the different kinds of technical topics in writing. Okay. All right. So if you have any questions again, we can talk about that. Thank you.